Today's podcast is brought to you by Inverted Gear. For all your jiu-jitsu needs, go to invertedgear.com. Save 15% off if you type in the coupon code SHOWTHEART15 with no spaces. Our next sponsor is Chimera Coffee. That's Chimera Coffee with a K. They are a coffee brand that infused their coffee with nootropics. If you don't know what nootropics are, Google it. They can do a much better job at explaining it than I can. Go to chimeracoffee.com, type in the coupon code SHOWTHEART for a nice little discount. Enjoy. Kit Dale, welcome to the show. You are a funny guy, a comedian, and a world champion. How are you, man?
I'm good, mate. Thank you.
What's up, my man?
Say hi. This is Kit Dale.
Kit Dale, hello.
What's going on, Marcus?
Great. It's a pleasure to hear your voice.
Always, mate. Always.
So where are you right now? You're in LA. Did you move from Australia to LA or?
I'm in LA at the moment. I'm in Huntington Beach. I've moved. Well, I haven't moved permanently. I'm in the middle of moving. I was working on a green card about 2 years ago when I hurt my knee, and so I was halfway through organising the green card. But then I hurt my knee, so I had to stay back home and wait for surgery, and that was a huge debacle that left me there till about a month ago. So I've been here for a month so far, and just back into working on moving again now.
Nice, man. Well, I'm getting married next week, so that means we have a week to get you a green card if you want to go down that road.
Yes, I would like that.
Cool, man. But it's good to hear from you. What's up with jiu-jitsu and competing? And we really want to get your thoughts on this because you were one of the guys for a long time that we were on the same wavelengths with as far as the rules in jiu-jitsu and just it being too stringent. Yeah.
Well, to start off with, I had a massive injury February 2015, I think it was. It was. Yeah, that's the time. And kind of like I just finished competing in Polaris, and 2 days leading up to my fight in Polaris with, who was it again? Sorry, Victor Silverio. I rolled my ankle really badly, and I'd never rolled my ankle this bad. And I was close to pulling out of the fight. And then I thought, you know what? Fuck it. I might as well fight. And sorry, can I swear on here?
Yeah, please.
Yes.
Edit.
As much as you want.
I swear a lot. So I thought, you know what? I'll fight anyway. And he was really cool. Like, he never attacked my leg. He knew it was bad. He never attacked it. So the fight went well. But I came back to Australia to film something with my brother. He was doing a 35-minute short film, and he wanted me to play the main antagonist. And so I come back to Australia to do that. But while I was in Australia, I wanted to play a little bit of football, Aussie rules football, because my ankle was really sore. And I thought, well, if I tape it enough, I can run around and I should be fine instead of getting like toe held in jiu-jitsu or something like that. Because in jiu-jitsu, you need to use your feet a lot more than football, as far as I'm concerned. And then so I was taping my ankle and I was playing football. And I think I played 5 games and I just started getting the fitness of a football again and just a touchback. And I went to pivot with 3 seconds left in the game, and I handballed the ball to my brother. And as I pivoted, my whole knee just collapsed and just gave away. And I ended up snapping my ACL. I tore my PCL, my MCL, my LCL, and split the lateral meniscus.
Oh, man, that's like everything.
Yeah, so, well, the only one that was snapped was the ACL, but everything else was torn and damaged. So I needed to get a full knee reconstruction, and I didn't have private health insurance, which sucked. So it was going to cost me about $10,000. So I waited on public for 9 months, and then they called me in to go in there to do like a checkup before you go to get surgery, and then they advised me I was going to be another 9 months before another 9 months before surgery. So I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to pay for this myself. So I ended up paying for it in, I think it was February this year, and I had the surgery done 6 months ago. So I've been back to jiu-jitsu for a month now, training and stuff, which feels so good. So I'm really happy to be back, and I will be competing again.
Awesome, man.
It's been a pain in the ass because a lot of people have been sort of like, oh, you know, why'd you quit? Why'd you stop? And, you know, blah, blah.
Yeah, and all these stories come up about, like, rumors, like, oh, Kit Dale said this, or this is why he's not competing, or that,
yeah.
You know, like, actually, really, I haven't really heard too much about you being injured as the reason.
Yeah.
It's crazy how, like, false word spreads.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, it's like the people that don't know who speak the loudest all the time. But look, I got my issues with jiu-jitsu. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of things I don't like about the competition aspect of it, and the way a lot of people train or teach. But I would still be competing regardless for my own benefit.
Sure.
To step outside my own comfort zones. I enjoy competition.
Okay. Now, I wanted to ask you about, I mean, this is kind of off subject, but, we're from America, so our health insurance works differently. So when you say private insurance, that means you can get insurance free through the public domain? How does that work?
Well, what it means is you pay a certain amount a year, and I'm not sure the exact number, but it might be about $2,000 a year you pay. And if you have an injury or doing something, it's completely covered with, and you can go get the surgery done for free, and you get looked after a lot better in private than what you do in public.
But you get on a waiting list? Is that how it works if you're on public?
No, you can get it done pretty quickly. Only if you're public, because public is for free. If you don't have private health, you go public, but then you're on a waiting list. And that waiting list for me was about a year long. So
in Australia, there is free public health insurance, but it's a long waiting list. Gotcha.
Yeah, but you're on a long waiting list. And sometimes what happens, like it happened to me one time, was for another surgery, I would go in there and then you would be there for an hour waiting, or maybe even longer, 3 or 4 hours, and they'd say, look, sorry, someone's come in the emergency with a heart, needs a heart transplant or something. And then you would get bumped back and then you'd have to wait another couple months.
Oh, really? So it's not even like, hey, wait in the hospital until we're done with this open heart surgery. It's come back in 3 months.
No, because what'll happen is they'll have people backed up behind you. So if they come in at your time, it's just unfortunate. They you got like a rating 1, 2, 3, depending on how severe your injury is, or what's going on.
Man, that's kind of crazy, but good at the same time because you get free health insurance, right?
Yeah, it's good to get free health insurance. Yeah. I think compared to what I've heard, how it works here, it's very good. It happened to my mum the other day. She had to get an operation on something. I can't remember what it was. And she went in there, she was waiting, and then she got told that, sorry, it's not going to happen today. So she had to go back home.
Uh-huh.
Actually, a similar thing happened to me with when I had my knee surgery. What happened is I ended up ripped open the stitches on the side of it about 3 weeks after I had the surgery. I had a hematoma, which was where it's like heaps of blood clotted in one area of my knee, and it was right where there was a huge incision, and it was putting so much pressure because with the rehab I had to do with doing like bending and stuff like that, it was putting so much pressure on the cut that it split open. And I went to the physio about a week beforehand, and I said to him, like, what happens here, and he said, look, if the swelling doesn't go down, we'll have to drain it out anyway.
Uh-huh.
So in my head, I'm like, you know what? Well, I might as well push a bit of the blood out and, do his job for him. So I started pushing it. And what happened was as a little bit of blood came out, then suddenly like thick coagulated blood that looked like raspberry jam came out.
What?
I was like, whoa, okay, that's not right. So I started pushing more out. And
I started doing more of it.
Yeah, I had to. It made me sick, but I needed to get it out. And I had more, so I pushed more out. And it just would not stop coming out. So I went to a doctor the day after, and he pushed 120 mils worth of like coagulated thick blood out, and then I had to go back into surgery to get it to stitched up properly this time. And that's where I went in Wednesday morning, and I was supposed to get seen that morning, and I didn't get seen until Thursday night. And you're not allowed to eat within 12 hours of your surgery, so I was like, or drink, and I was like starving, and I was thirsty, waiting and waiting. It was like hell. So once that anesthesia stuff went in my skin, I was like, yes, now I'm happy again.
Nice, man. That's crazy. That's interesting.
Yeah, it was annoying. I've had a lot of injuries. I've competed. My knee's been bad the whole time of competing because it was an injury I did years ago. I just never got it really fixed, and I was never running around crazy on it. So it was, jiu-jitsu is kind of, it's good that way. You don't have like high intensity impacts where you sort of what happens when you're running full steam ahead.
Yeah.
So I got away with it, but after I did this and the surgery, I've never had an injury where it just debilitates you so much.
Sure. And in jiu-jitsu, you can kind of work around your injury, right? Like, if your knee hurts, you can play guard more and kind of leave that one leg to the side or whatever the case is.
Which is what I'm doing now. It's, I don't know of anyone that's come back as quick as I have so far in jiu-jitsu, which kind of scares me. I know Vinny Magalesh, he competed in 8 months, but for me, I've been training at the 5-month mark. And when I say training, I don't drill, so it's not drills. I've been rolling since that. For the first 2 weeks, it was just guard passing, and very low on my knees. But now I'm doing guard and I'm doing passing. But anytime someone grabs my leg and puts any kind of pressure on it, I just, if it's in a bad spot, I'll just tap, or I avoid it and try and hide it altogether, or just go with it. You know what I mean?
Sure. And I'm sure you let your trainer partners know that your knee is messed up to go easy on that knee, right?
Well, you know what? At the level I'm at, it's pretty good. I can kind of hide it and not worry too much. Like a lot of people sort of say, what knees are I tell them not to worry, because the most important thing with my rolling is discovering the timing of everything. And if they know a knee's injured and stuff like that, they treat you differently and they roll completely different, which is not going to benefit me nor them. Not to say, if I was going against someone that, loves heel hooks or something like that, then I'd probably mention it.
Yeah.
But, I'll just say, look, if I tap early, it's just because of something. But I prefer not to tell them at all, to be honest with you.
Okay. And then you just like you said, tap early or baby it or whatever the case is. Now, when you, like you said, you don't drill at all, really. Is there any time that you do drill, to introduce a move, or how do you introduce a new technique to your game?
To be honest with you, I kind of dropped the notion of technique. It's the way I see jiu-jitsu is very different to what most people see jiu-jitsu. If we're talking techniques, I don't if you said to me, "What's your favorite technique?" I wouldn't even be able to tell you. I don't look at it as in techniques. I look at the whole thing as one movement with an end game. You know what I mean? The end game submission, but the whole thing is just one movement. And it depends on how people how people act. It will depend on how I react. So my whole thing is on reactions and timing and stuff like that. So a new technique to me, I look at a new technique as just a possibility in a certain area. So if someone said to me, "Hey kid, check this out. This has been working on," that's all I need to see. I don't like practicing it dead for starters, because anything practiced dead is completely different to alive, because the timing is the most important thing of it, not the reactions, but the timing. And at my level, there's not many things that people show me that are really abstract. I'm like, oh, shit, I've never done anything like that.
Sure.
I can kind of associate with most things right now. So it's very easy to attach new information to what I already have. But I really dislike the thought of techniques now. So I kind of look at it, that's a possibility. So what I'll do is I see, okay, this is what he did. I'm going to go in this area and I'm going to play around and I'm going to make a heap of mistakes and learn from them and then come up with my own answer to this. Because the whole thing is you can give someone the how to do something, which is the answer to an equation, right? But without them knowing the why, that answer is really powerless. You know what I mean? It'll get them through that one time, but the how is everything, and the why is everything. Why are you doing this? When do you do that? These are the most important things, and the reasons why this works and the reasons why it doesn't. For example, a technique will work at one stage, but if they do one other thing or they know something else, then it's not going to work. So that's why I think about techniques more as, when you start jiu-jitsu, I think techniques are a good little way to keep people interested, to give them a quick result. You can give them a few techniques and give them an idea of, the way things work.
Yeah.
But I don't emphasize much on making that finite. I kind of think this is the idea. This is something that this guy likes to do, but I want you to play around with this and I want you to find your own expression of this. I want you to learn through trial and error so that, when you make a heap of mistakes and things start clicking, you have a fundamental understanding of why that thing works, not just how to do it. So instead of giving them an answer to a mathematical equation, I try and give them the formula.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I like that take. Now, how do you introduce jiu-jitsu to a new student? So you kind of you have to teach people techniques in the beginning, of course.
Well, look, that's debatable. I think it's healthy to teach them techniques at the start. Mm-hmm. I don't think you have to.
Okay.
I think, the way jiu-jitsu was invented and the way all martial arts were invented was from nothing at all, so you don't have to.
True.
Will it speed up their progression? Maybe. But I think it's, like I said, I think it's like a light in the dark. A lot of people go in jiu-jitsu and they don't really know what's going on, so a technique's a good way of showing them. But I don't like to teach them. What I like to teach them is I try and give them the why you're doing something. For example, if they the first thing I usually get is someone passing guard. And I say, look, this is the guard. This is why you don't want to be in the guard. This is where you want to be, and this is why you want to be there. Mm-hmm. Now, I want you to get from A to B, and I want you to play around. And then I'll throw them in the deep end, which is quite overwhelming because they're not going to know what's going on.
Yeah.
But they can look around at the class and quickly get ideas. Or what I'll do is I'll look at the way they move, because the technique is, I think the technique is completely overrated in jiu-jitsu. I think the timing is the most important thing by a mile.
Yes.
So I'm not really caring too much about their technique. What I'm looking at is their posture, their movement. Are they too stiff? Are they too rigid? Is their posture bad? Are they leaning too far forward? What's their footwork like? You know what I mean? If you were doing boxing, the first thing I'd work on is your movement and your footwork, not your left and right hook. And I think too many people go into jiu-jitsu working on their left, right, jab, straight, hook, uppercut before they even know how to move their legs.
So, and that's good that you said that, because when we introduce new students, we do that same thing. Like, actually, literally the other day, we had, I think, 2 new students at the same time come into class and try class out for the first time. But what we normally do with the new student is exactly what you just said. We explain to them, all right, this is where you want to be. This is where you can be. And we explain the concepts of what's the kind of the goal for jiu-jitsu. And then our live drill is positional, getting past the guard. All right, you're in front of the legs, get past the legs and get into this position or that position.
That's great. I really like that. Yeah. And I don't see, the thing is, and the word drilling is completely misunderstood a lot of times, or misinterpreted. So my view of drilling is when you drill in a technique, like a singular technique over and over again, high repetition drilling to make something, to create muscle memory through a certain pattern of movements. What you're talking about there is what I would call specific training, whereas you're it's in a specialized environment and it's still free, but in this certain environment which forces people to practice certain areas, which I really like.
Yeah.
The thing is, with these, what I do, with specific training, what I really stress to people is that they shouldn't let people know what they're trying to do. For example, some coaches will say, okay, Bill, you're working on arm bars today, and Jeffrey, you're working on half guard, in front of the other students. And what they do straight away, as soon as you hear this guy's working on arm bars, what do? You just tuck your elbows in straight away. You know what I mean? And the poor kid, it makes it way hard for the poor kid. And no matter how good he is, even if he's a black belt, he can still get you, but the timing is completely misinterpreted because the guy knows exactly what you're doing. And timing is the most important thing. I always say time is the most important thing. And what is timing? It's doing things that they don't expect. It's doing what they least expect usually, which is the right time. And if they know what you're doing, then the whole training of timing is lost straight away. So all you're working on is imposing your will on someone, which is what I dislike in jiu-jitsu already. And that's a byproduct of the way tournaments are run. 6 to 10 minutes. 6 to 10 minutes is way too short to really get a feeling out stage and really to work. It's like trying to play a game of tennis, a match of tennis in the first game. You know what I mean? Whoever gets a good start usually wins. So what happens is people start training differently. They start, doing drilling, and they start doing steroids and high strength training, and they want to come out and just smash their opponent for 6 minutes, which is, cool, you're going to win a competition, but is that jiu-jitsu? Nah, not really. It's more like, it's not chess, it's human chess. It's more like Connect 4.
So would you say that you have a game, or do you just react?
I'm a completely reactional at this
stage. You just
stage.
React. Okay.
There's certain areas that I like being. I'm a small, muscular guy, so there's certain areas of jiu-jitsu that are going to benefit me more, which I enjoy playing more. Which if I'm playing against a tall guy, I'm not going to sit there trying to Toriander his legs and stuff like that. I'm not stupid.
Yeah.
But I have certain game plan strategies for certain types of people, but it's mostly reactional. Okay. Even inside those game plans, it's reactional. For example, if I had a tall guy, I'm going to try and play a close game with him, but it's still reactional because that's the thing I love about jiu-jitsu is I'm trying to get like checkmates all the time. I'm trying to like get him. I know where I want him to be and I know what I want to do, but I'm trying to figure out ways of getting him to do that for me.
Absolutely. And I love that concept. That's something I've been working on a lot lately, specifically with guard passing. And that's kind of leading the person on to make them think you're doing one thing, and then boom, you surprise them with a movement, or you just cut them off in a specific area to get past the legs. I describe that as like trickery and kind of trickery.
Psychological warfare.
Yeah. Would you say that's what you do? Like you're making them feel one thing, boom, and then you cut them off with another thing. And I like what you said. I was trying to choose my words wisely, because when I'm trying to do that, go to the left a little bit to turn their hips so I can go back to the right or whatever. I was thinking I don't use techniques when I'm moving that fast or in that zone. I can't use a technique. I have to just get past.
You do.
So it's kind of like saying a running back football player, American football player, when they have to fake their defender out, they can't think I'm gonna do this move and this move and this. They just have to react and fake the person out.
Yeah, and that comes down to being able to read the play. Being able to read your opponents, and when you think of like what does my opponent want to do, and it's not in technique, it's in like you've got to get inside their mind. What are they thinking? And it's the same thing with football. Is you've got to have the ability to read the play, read where the players are going, and to read where the players are going, you need to know what is he thinking. And of course, you don't have that time to sit there and think, okay, what's he thinking? But it becomes as like an instinctual sort of thing, and that's why with training, the way we're discussing at the moment, what you do is you're constantly reading the play. You're constantly taking in your environment. You're coming up with new solutions. You're executing them, and you're learning from whatever happened. And that's the difference between when you talk about like drilling. Drilling, you don't do that. Drilling, you do that for maybe the first 4 or 5, and then you just start repeating the sequence to create muscle memory. Yeah. And you're not developing timing, you're developing reaction speed against a guy that's reacting the way you're asking him. And when it's live, it's a complete different thing. I'm not saying that you can't drill and be really good. You can, but you're going to take 2, 3, 4, 5 times longer, and it probably will be, in the end, more detrimental than what it will be beneficial to what you're doing, in my opinion. You can still, like you can get these guys like Andre Galval that, people say, oh, he's been drilling, he drills and stuff, and he's one of the best in the world. Yeah, but he also trained from a young age with some of the best grapplers there were, with the best coaches there were. He's grown up about it. He trains so much. Like, you take one of these guys, put him in Australia, tell him, hey, you can't train jiu-jitsu till you're 22. You've got 4 years to get a black belt, and you're training once a day with guys that, are blue, purple, and brown belts.
Sure. And you wouldn't drill. You would just spend most of your time trying to get good at the one thing that people expect you to get good at, and that's rolling. That's sparring.
Yes.
I got
the thing is, and I did it more as an accident. It wasn't like when I first started, I was like, hey, this is the way I think is more beneficial. It was just the way I wanted to do it. I did it more as a hobby because I was playing football at the same time, and I just enjoyed the rolling and the problem-solving aspect of it. I always wanted to figure out my own problems. So the way I would train and the way like my progression worked was more of a byproduct of just a preference of training. I get distracted easily. I get like bored easily. So I want to play with different stuff. I don't want to do the same technique twice. I want to try and do it differently. And this is what and then I started getting amazing results from it. My progression was so rapid, and I was always trying to break it down, but I didn't have a scientific understanding of learning and stuff like that. So it was only later on when I got my black belt that I really started studying case studies of learning and the psychology of sports and all that kind of stuff, and learning new things. And then I started realizing, hey, fuck, I accidentally stumbled on a gold mine here because this kind of stuff is amazing. So it was like an accident that happened. So now I try and teach it, but you still got people that are so attached to old ideologies that fight it without even understanding what you're talking about. So I've got guys who sit there telling me that, they'll misinterpret what I'm saying. They'll try and make me sound dumb, and as if I have no idea what I'm saying, and that literally have never ever spoken to me or asked the question, what is he really trying to say? You know what I mean?
Sure. Interesting, man. Now, let me tell you the and I don't want to say this just because we're talking to you, but I always kind of felt this way. I always kind of liked drilling, but I was never in love with drilling. I always liked the sparring more, but recently in the last 2 years, maybe, I stopped truly believing in drilling. And the moment I had was I started to look at my game, just look back at what had happened in all the roles that I had been in, whether it's competition or in class. And I started to notice, man, none of the techniques that I've been drilling, quote unquote, that I've been practicing have come up. It's all the techniques that I've been wanting to get, that I've been visualizing, that I thought was cool, or that I saw my professor doing, or that I saw Kit Dale or Andre Galval doing in competition because I'm a fan of the sport. Those are the things that stuck in my head, and I tried, and I remembered to try in the roles. Drilling is always taught to you that that's how you implement new techniques in your roles, but I felt like I was bypassing the drills just by visualizing the new techniques and remembering to try them. So that's when I stopped believing in drilling as the end-all be-all, because most of my game was a product of techniques I had never drilled one rep before.
Yeah, exactly. I had the same thing when I was a blue belt, and I remember rolling with a couple people, And the next day I came in and I started doing exactly what they were doing to me. I was like, fuck, how the hell am I doing this? I've never learnt this, but it just happens instinctually. And there's a thing called brain mirror neuron theory, which basically suggests that anytime you have a basic understanding of something, you can learn by visually watching. Your brain fires the same neurons as what you would be if you were actually doing it when watching it, as long as you have a fundamental understanding of what it is you're doing. So they had a test with one group of ballerinas and one group of, I can't remember what the other one, let's say they were fucking softball players. When the ballerinas were watching the softball players, they had no brain neurological things firing.
Because they didn't know what was going on. They didn't
know what was going on. But when they watched someone else doing ballet, the same neurons were firing in the people doing the ballet with the people that were watching. And they started learning, so they realized that it's quite obvious that you can learn visually without even doing it.
Yeah. But that's proof that is the case.
Yes, that is absolute proof. So things like that, and then you look at randomized training over blocked training, which is basically the difference between someone doing high repetition drilling and someone practicing different techniques on the fly or just rolling. The kind of benefits you get from that far outweigh what you do with mass training. Plus, one thing that people don't really take into account is long-term memory retention, which should be one of your number one things you want to concentrate on.
Okay.
Because you can cram a whole lot of information in your short-term memory. Okay, for example, if you wanted to train, if you had 7 different subjects and you had one group of people doing one subject per week and the other group doing one subject per hour, by the end of the first week, the one that did the whole subject per week would have a better test result because they've got so much information in but what they figured out is it's only short-term information. It doesn't transfer across to long-term information, and that the group that did one subject per hour would have better long-term retention than the other group. And this was done in so many different styles of learning and different sports, different arts and stuff like that.
So why is that?
Well, because your short-term memory only holds a certain amount of information, or your long-term memory only holds a certain amount of information. What happens is it spills over into your short-term memory. So if you're doing, it doesn't matter how much of something you're doing, you're only going to absorb a certain amount of information. So instead of trying to absorb, let's say you're doing 7 hours worth of work and only absorbing 1 hour of that work, why not do 7 different subjects for an hour and absorb all the information for all of them, the long-term memory?
I see what you're saying. After a certain point, you're not going to get that much better at it.
No, not at all.
So you might as well cram more. Gotcha.
Which is why, I learned guitar, I learned piano, I learned to sing, I learned different forms of art, I learned martial arts, I learned acting all at the same time. Because I know that if I do little parts of everything, I'm going to retain all the information from it, rather than being obsessive and spending so much time doing one thing and then having short-term memory spikes, but always losing that information in the end. It's just a waste of time. It's been unproductive. And this is the thing that confuses a lot of people, is because even people that do hyper-repetition drilling, is they feel a benefit straight away from it because you can see the result in front of you.
Yeah. You
drill something 100 times, you can see that you're getting better at it. What they don't realize and they don't see is the memory retention drops after that. That, for example, you did 100 repetitions, only 10 of those are going to stick. The other 80 over the next week or two are going to completely disappear.
Yeah, Tim Ferriss talks about the minimum effective dose, which is what is the minimum amount I need to do to yield the result that I'd like.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what you're talking about?
Yeah, well, he's a smart dude. He also, he talks about the Vilfredo Pareto's 80-20 rule.
Yes.
Which is, 20% or 80% of your results come from 20% of your actions.
Yeah.
So that's where I look at a lot of guys these guys that, top of the game drilling and stuff. I say, yeah, they're drilling, but look at the 20% of their actions, which is going to be the 80% of their results. You know what I mean? And it's probably, drilling is probably more, I think in my mind, it's definitely more detrimental than it is beneficial.
Sure. It's funny that you cited that study because thinking back, it just clicked to me. Thinking back when I was in school, I wasn't when I had tests, I wasn't the type of student that would study for long hours for a week each night. I was the type of person that studied by I would study for 20 minutes, then go walk around, and then come back 20 minutes, and then go give I would just keep giving myself mini rest. I don't know if it's because I was getting bored, but I guess my brain was naturally knew that was a better way to study by doing like increments instead of going for 3 hours. And I remember trying to study for 3 hours and not remembering a thing.
Yeah. I think you get like I forget what it's called. Like, it's like brain fatigue as well. That I like doing the exact same thing. I'll spend a couple minutes doing something, and I'll walk away and let my body absorb whatever I was doing, then come back. And then even switching it in between different things, because even when I play the piano at home, the way I learn is I jump on the piano and I play for probably 2 minutes, and then I walk around and go do something else, and I'll come back in 20, 30 minutes, and I'll jump back on it and do another 2 or 3 minutes. Yeah. And it's like completely randomized, but the rate in which I'm learning is far greater than like the average that would sit there spending 2 hours a day doing like a lesson.
Interesting. And that's kind of part of like the whole thing of like do 2 minutes each day consistently as opposed to practice for 1 hour each week, because regardless of how much total time you're getting under your study, you're getting more like consistent time studying. So if you're doing 2 minutes 5 times a day, you're getting 5 times of practice each day. So you have a longer time to, remember. Instead of 1 week, then you get 5 days, 6 days to forget everything you learned and then come back to it.
And that's one of like the main things of learning is repetition, but not in repetition in the sense of continuously doing something over and over again, because that becomes procedural memory. But for declarative memory, just coming back every day or so. You know what I mean? You spend 20 minutes over doing something, make sure that you come back within a day and do another 20 minutes so it just keeps obtaining. So they found that certain people say they're visual learners, they're kinesthetic or auditorial learners. Yeah. They found that was like, doesn't matter what you think you are, that's just a preference, and that everyone learns, unless you've got some kind of learning disability, everyone learns the same way regardless. It's just what you can focus more on. But the most important thing, other than like repeating it every now and then, is how you associate with the information that you're learning. Okay. And that's where you look at like good teachers will be able to find analogies for students to be able to associate what they're teaching with something they already know.
Sure.
And that's why the more information or the more understanding you have of something, the easier it is to apply new information. Works the same way. For example, people that read cards and people that can look at a deck of cards and read the whole thing within 2 minutes, they can read the whole cards the way they're...
Like in poker, you mean? Or like just...
things like that. Yeah. What they do is they create associations with cards. For example, number 1 is gun, number 2 is shoe, number 3 is tree. And what they'll do is they'll play a story between them. Let's say the gun shot the shoe next to the tree, and they'll elaborate on it a lot more. And what happens is you can't remember the numbers and sequence, but what you remember is the story that you played. So if I'm teaching someone something, I'll always try to find an analogy with it. If it's a movement that looks like swimming, I'll say it's just like when you're swimming or when you're reaching or when you're grabbing this, And because then they remember that because they can associate with it and it creates a story. So it's really important for not just yourself as a student, but as an instructor to create associations with what you're teaching.
Interesting.
Because that's the number one thing for learning something.
So the best teachers will give associated metaphors to their students. Yes. All my students love to play basketball, so a lot of the guard passing drills, when I teach them, I'm going to associate them with basketball terminology or whatever.
Which will yield the best result.
Yeah. It's funny because
they'll remember.
I was just talking to one of the parents of the students at our school, and his daughter is 6 years old. She just grappled for the first time. She's been doing jiu-jitsu, but she hasn't sparred yet. She kind of, she's a small girl, and she kind of got a little scared. And so he went and talked to her. And then today he told her, like, hey, it's a little scary at first, but the way he brought it up to her as to overcome that fear was, he said, remember when I used to bring you on the monkey bars? In the beginning, you were too scared to hold on. And then eventually I held on to you for a little longer or a little less and a little less. And then you would hang on. And now you climb the whole thing. And then she got it. And she was like, oh, yeah, perfect. I want to go back to jiu-jitsu.
Exactly.
So it was that metaphor that she associated with that made her realize and stick with her. Right? That's what you
makes it so much more powerful.
Man.
So if you can do that with all your students, you're going to get a lot better results. Or as a student, if you can do that with whatever you're learning, you do the same thing.
So we have to really know our students then.
Well, yeah, I think the better coaches do.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing is there's a lot of coaches, 90% of coaches just regurgitate techniques that they've learned or they've been taught, and they get their students to drill them. And it's a really easy way to, one, sell techniques online. It's so easy to sell techniques. I could go out there and make 100 different techniques and sell it online, and people are going to buy it. But am I really helping them? No, not really.
Yeah.
I'm giving them the smallest result I possibly could with the smallest amount of effort that I need to put in. But to really sort of teach them, you need to get inside their head, and you need to be able to, get analogies that most people can understand, that the general public can understand, and you need to explain things that are a lot more intricate. When you're talking about concepts and ideas, it's a lot harder to articulate. Let alone to be able to get people to associate with them rather than just techniques.
Interesting. And it's interesting that you say that too, because we've been talking to a lot of people on the podcast, people that have been training for a long time, black belts like yourself, that most of them have been saying that they're not drilling as much as they used to, if any, and are doing the specific training and the live rolls way more of the time. And we've been doing that in class lately, not spending as much time teaching techniques, but more time doing the positional. We call it positional sparring, but it's specific training, whatever you want to call it.
Same thing.
So we'll start in the mount, and then first point wins or first submission wins or whatever the case may be for 2 minutes, and then restart whoever wins. Right? That's kind of what you guys do as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and we've been doing a lot more of that, and then grappling after class. So we're spending, a third of the time teaching the technique and them kind of getting used to it, and then more time doing the live training. And I feel like we've been yielding better results.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that system of learning. I think it's much better. I look at techniques as, when you're riding a bike, when you learn to ride a bike, techniques is the training wheels. Okay, so it's good at the start because it can help you balance a little bit and it gives you a bit of an idea. But, the thing you want to do the most as a coach and as a student is get those training wheels off. That should be your first goal, is to step away from techniques. And if you listen to any masters talk about any kind of art form they've done, they always say the same thing. It's like, I learned from techniques at the start, and then my next step was to forget them all. It's like not even techniques. They would say, I got everything I learned, and now my goal is to let everything go. And that's what I started doing. Was I had all these techniques that I learned, and not from drilling, but just techniques I learned from rolling. And then what I do was I wanted to let them go as well, and just free myself up. And Bruce Lee talks about this all the time. And he's got that one quote that is misinterpreted all the time. Fear not the man that knows 10,000 kicks. Fear the man that has kicked one time 10,000 times, whatever it is. Yeah. And the amount of people I see misinterpret that as, he's talking about high repetition drilling. Let's drill something 10,000 times. Yeah. He's not talking about that, because that would be what you're doing. You're getting 10,000 different techniques, which is what most people do these days. Is you see 90% of jiu-jitsu guys are the people that know jiu-jitsu moves. Mm-hmm. And there's a small percentage of people that know jiu-jitsu. And that there is a big difference. It's like having a dancer, and you got one group of people that know choreographed dance routines. So when you hear a certain song, they know how to dance, and it looks like they know what they're doing. But there's other people that know how to dance. Doesn't matter what you put on, they can groove to it, they can move to it. And that's what I wanted to develop in jiu-jitsu. So I wanted to learn how to do jiu-jitsu, not jiu-jitsu techniques. And it's improvisational acting. You know what I mean? There's people that can break down scripts, and they can, theater actors, and they repeat the same sequence and they heighten it, and it's just they keep repeating it. But it becomes boring and stale. Where I like improvisational stuff. I like working off your opponent, off your environment, whatever it is.
Interesting. I like those concepts, man. And whatever I teach in class is usually something that I pulled off in a roll the day before, and I was like, wow, I like that a lot. But I'm teaching people to stay after class and drill the techniques. I don't know. What would you say it's a good idea, though? If I'm rolling and I find a move that that was a good position. I really like that. That was a good find to try it after class and go over it a few times just so we don't forget it? Or
Yes.
how would you approach that situation where you liked something so much, it was new to you when you were sparring, it happened live, so you know it works to remember it?
So what I would look at is the most important part of it, the why. Why did this particular technique work? Because the thing is there's one notion that people need to get through their head. There is no perfect technique in jiu-jitsu. It doesn't matter how many times you drill something. There is no perfect technique in jiu-jitsu. There is no finite technique. There's just the right time to do anything. And just like martial arts, you can throw the craziest or the most precise technique at the wrong time and it won't work. Or you can throw the craziest fucking windmill head kick at the right time and knock someone out. Look at Gabriel Gonzaga when he knocked out Miko Krokop.
Yeah.
So the most important thing is timing, and when you look at timing, you break it down. It's the why. Why did this technique work? So what I would break down with my students and people want to teach, because this really reinforces it inside yourself and your students, is the why this worked. So what it is, but explain the why. What's the fundamental concepts behind this that made this work? And the psychological part, maybe, see, what I did is I moved his body here because when I moved it here, he thought I was going to do this, which makes him react this way, which is what I wanted in the first place. That kind of stuff's powerful because then you start teaching them how to manipulate and why things work. So when I'm teaching, I will use technique as an example of the concept that I'm really trying to teach at the moment. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's really important for you to really break it down, one, so you understand it better yourself, which is really good for when it comes to teaching because it forces you to do that, and two, because you're going to teach them the why, which is much more important than the how.
So what is the solution for someone like me who does something in class, boom, I roll, I get this move that I want to try again? How do I not forget it? Like, you leave the gym already and you're starting to think over what happened. How do I not forget that technique to try it next class? When we
forget the fact that it was a technique. It was just something that happened at the right time. Try and figure out why that worked. What was the reason why this technique worked? You know what I mean? And when you think that, you start breaking it down, and then it becomes declarative information, which is something you can recall anytime. Procedural information is information that's in your body. Declarative's in the mind. So what I'll look at is, let's say I got some kind of leg drag and it just worked beautifully. And I'll be like, okay, it's not so important of what I did, it's why I did it. Yeah. So go back into that situation and go, that's why I did it, because he was using a knee shield to stretch me out. So what I use is the momentum of that to flatten his body out, made him feel like I was going this way, but I hopped over. So then what you have is you have the concepts behind why that worked. Then you can take that, internalize that, teach it, so it'll reinforce it even more to your other students.
Yes.
Like the more you teach it, the more it'll reinforce. And then just use the concepts to come up with other solutions in that same area based on that idea of why. Not so much because you don't want to repeat the sequence, because then that becomes stale, because it becomes a repetitive pattern.
And it might not happen ever again that way when you try to,
the chances are it definitely won't ever happen again, because that person knows that you did it once, so he's always going to have that in his head once. And everyone reacts differently, and everyone's got different body sizes. So you're better off finding out why this thing worked, then apply it to every different area.
So interesting. That's a great concept. And it made me realize, just asking that question again, it goes back to what you were saying about I have to let it go. Let go that I got that cool submission or that technique. Let it go. Forget about the submission. Forget about the technique, the past. But just try to understand the why it happened. What position did I put myself in to even make that possible? That's what you're saying, right?
Yes. Because when you force yourself to ask, and I think it's a really good tool, is asking yourself why everything happens. Then it forces you to break it down, and you have that as declarative information. Declarative information is like stuff that you can always recall. Like if I asked you what your phone number was, and you could recite it in your head, that's declarative information. If I asked you what you did yesterday, that's declarative information. If I asked you anything procedurally, which is learnt through repetition, that's just muscle memory. That's like how to run, how to walk, how to jump, how to chew. You just do it. You don't know how you're doing it, but it just happens, which is where you want to steer away from that. You're going to develop that naturally anyway with just movement and reactions while rolling. But you want to free yourself up from any rigid forms and patterns, and because that's the stuff that makes you predictable. It makes you stiff, it makes you rigid, it makes you predictable. You want to free yourself up and then just concentrate on the concepts. So figure out why this thing worked, remember that, and apply it to different areas and play around with that. So use that as a guideline, internalize that, and then you forget about the technique, because the solution is only appropriate in that particular time that you're coming up with it. And the whole thing becomes problem solving. And the thing is, when you train like this, you get really, really good at problem solving. So then when you come against someone that is really good with their technique, that drills a lot, what's the best thing you can do? Take them into an area they're not comfortable.
Yeah.
People that drill a lot like their certain techniques, because you can't drill every single technique. You don't have enough time in the day for it. It would take you, I had a look at it. It was going to take every single technique to be drilled 10,000 times to make it perfect. It would take 546 years training twice a day, 1 hour a day. No, twice a day, 1 hour session.
Dang.
So which is near impossible. So what happens is people that drill, they get a specific area that they want to become proficient in, and they just practice that one area. So the best thing you can do is take them outside their comfort zone into a different area. And if you want to break it down even further than that, when people drill, they drill for the most common denominator, the most common reaction. So the best thing you can do is act uncommon.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
No, I like that.
They
Yeah.
wouldn't expect. And you take them into the gray area, and you know that you can problem solve quicker than what they can, because they rely on muscle memory. You rely on declarative memory, which is problem solving. So you take them in an area and you keep changing the variables. You know that you're always going to come up with a solution before they will in a new area.
Sure. Like if you love to play guard and everybody knows you have a great guard and they know they have to get in, get a good stance and play that whole game, but you sit up and get a sweep as soon as they get in, they might not expect that because they're expecting a 5-minute battle of trying to pass your guard. But if you just come up quickly and just grab a single, you'll probably get it because you're taking them in a realm they weren't expecting with you, right?
Exactly. And you break it down even further to like, certain people like certain types of guard passing or guard, and you take one variable away. You just control one of their arms and watch how many people turn to shit when you take away one of their variables.
Yeah.
And you don't even need to concentrate on much else. You say, okay, look, I'm going to take this guy's one arm away. I'm going to control that, not let him use this at all. And see how it really shakes a lot of people up.
Kit, I turn to shit on a daily basis.
That means you're training, right?
Yeah.
Good. Now, that brings me to another question I had for you. How do you deal with, and this is a strong word, failure? How can someone deal with losing a position, getting swept? Like, let's say you're in a tournament where the failure counts. You lose a position, you get swept, you lost 2 points, or you're in you were going for a guard pass and you're just not getting it. How do you deal with those failures in those positions? I think mainly getting scored on. That's what I'm associating with. Or you're trying to pass the guard but you get swept. That's kind of a failure of passing the guard. Is because A, you didn't pass it, and B, you got countered on. So how can somebody deal with that? I know someone like Kobe Bryant would say, like, I have a short memory. If I miss a shot, I forget all about it, and I assume that I'm going to make the next one. So how do you deal with that?
Well, I think your perception of failure is very subjective to the individual. When it comes to like losing points and stuff like that in competition, I remember the first competition I think I was in where I lost the first points. Yeah, and there was a lot of competitions I had where I was winning from the start. And then one competition I got taken down. And I remember it shook me up a fair bit, and I was just like very rattled, and I was very worried, and I was like, holy shit, I've never been taken down before in a competition, and I'm on my back, and I've never played guard in a competition. This was at purple belt, and I'd never played guard until purple belt. And I remember being really stressed out. I ended up getting the submission, but I was in a state of panic and stress, and I spent a lot of energy to get the submission. I remember I even tweaked my back on the Kimura that I finished him in from guard. But I felt extremely uncomfortable. So what I did then, I thought, okay, I need to feel comfortable with this. I'm going out now, and I'm pulling guard on every single person I go against.
Yeah.
And the thing is, what you realize, and a lot of people feel too stressed because they look at the result too much. They're so result-based in their jiu-jitsu, in their competition, that they don't allow themselves to step outside their own comfort zones to feel comfortable in different areas. My goal is to feel comfortable everywhere. I don't want to have that. So I'm very happy to to step outside my comfort zone, and that's because that's the way I look at jiu-jitsu. I'm not focused on competition wins and world championships and stuff like that. And it's a sad thing that I find that the people that are so result focused, I'll tell you why, is because no result is ever going to make you happy.
Yeah.
And people think that it is. And I was the same for a long time. I was like, you know what? I got to win the world championships because I'm going to do that. It makes me happy. Yeah, I won the world pro championships, and I'm like, oh, cool. I'm off to my next goal now. So I was like happy for a little bit, then I was on to the next thing. And I was always focused on that. And if I lost a match, then I'd be so down on myself. And then I realized that, hold on a second, no one other than myself actually really gives a shit whether I win or lose.
Absolutely.
They really don't. And I thought that people did. I was like, everyone cares and stuff like that, but no one cares.
Yeah. And
the thing is, why do you care? Why is it so important? You're going to win a world championship and you think it's going to, in jiu-jitsu, and you think it's going to change your life. Jiu-jitsu is a very small niche art. And, and the competition inside it is even smaller.
Yeah.
To think that you're going to win it and it's going to make your life so much better, or it's going to change things, you're going to be some kind of like successful dude. No, not at all. You can win it and then you're going to be forgotten the year after.
Sure.
So it doesn't matter. Don't do it for other people. Do it for yourself. You know what I mean? So now it's like, what do I get out of it? What do I really want out of jiu-jitsu? And it's like, I like teaching and I like displaying the art, but the competition wins in itself means absolutely nothing to me. All my medals are sitting there in some basket at home, back in Australia, probably holding some door open. I wouldn't care. I don't really care. But the process is in itself, the art of learning, meeting new people, stepping outside your comfort zones for competition and becoming more confident in yourself, that is the most important thing.
Sure.
So I think when you let go of all that kind of shit, then stuff like going into competition and, being a couple of points down becomes familiar, and you become confident in that. And you actually enjoy that because it becomes a challenge that you enjoy because you enjoy the process. Because you're not fixated on the result. You're not sitting there thinking, the only time you're worried because if someone gets points on you is because you're looking at the end result. I've got to win. I have to get my points back. Where I now look at it, I'm like 2 points down and I feel more confident because I'm like, okay, cool. Now I'm the underdog all of a sudden.
This is a new challenge for me.
This is a challenge for me to grow from personally. So I invite it. Sometimes I'm happier to lose those points at the start. I'm like, okay, now suddenly I feel a lot more free to start really attacking. And the thing that's sort of like the problem I have is when I'm up in points and I'm so far up in points that I feel like, okay, now I need to be safe. And then I've lost matches like that where I'm like, I'm winning, but I start becoming safe, and then you start losing straight away.
Yeah, so true.
So what I like to do is like, I would much prefer to be down and be like, okay, now here we go. I can do whatever I want and start really freeing myself up to attack and really express my jiu-jitsu because I've got nothing to lose.
Yeah, you're already losing on the points.
Yep.
One of the affirmations I used to use, I don't compete as much because kind of what you were saying, like it's not about wins for me. I like to compete because it's fun sometimes, but I'm more doing jiu-jitsu for the journey, the personal growth, the teaching other people, the joy from them learning, things like that.
Which is the only thing that matters.
Yeah, man. But one of the things when I do compete that helped me out a ton when I discovered it was before the competition, I say to myself so that I could remember during the match to say to myself, I like this position. I like this. So if I get swept, I say, perfect. I like this. I want it to be swept. Or if I'm down on points, I like this. Or if I'm really exhausted, I'm really tired, I say, I like this. I like being tired. And what that did to me is when I was in bad positions, I wasn't freaking out and flipping out. Maybe I was for a second, and then I'm like, no, I like this position. This is good. This is where I want to be. This guy thinks that I don't want to be here. No, I'm fine here. Everything's fine. I like this position. And it calms you down and gets you back to normalcy. And I felt like that helped me out a lot. I kind of tricked my body into going back into like, this is like any day in the gym. If you get swept in the gym, you're not going to freak out.
I like that a lot. I associate myself with that when it comes to working hard, like when you're just like when you're exhausted, because that's like one of my biggest letdowns, especially my competition jiu-jitsu in the later, was my fitness, because I didn't really care that much about the results. So I wasn't like doing the fitness training. I wasn't interested in being strong or fit for jiu-jitsu. I'm more interested in doing weights to look good than what I am to be fit in jiu-jitsu. So like that was my number one letdown. And one thing that I did change in the end was, instead of being like, oh my God, I hate being exhausted, I was like, no, I love this. this is what I want, and I looked at it as a goal to get myself to that, because that's when you're improving. And I think it really resonates well when it comes to adversary and when you're losing something, is to think, no, like, I think to grow as an individual, you need to step outside your comfort zone as much as you can, and you should really seek opportunities like being scored on, like being in bad positions in jiu-jitsu, because they're the only opportunities you're going to have at growing. You don't grow when you absolutely dominate someone 35-0 and submit them, do you? I mean, you're going to grow a little bit because you're stepping outside your comfort zone. But when you grow is when you're getting destroyed in a match, and you need to come back from that.
Yeah.
Or you lose those first points and you need to come back. Or you're sick and you've got to compete. You've broken your ankle and you've got to compete.
Sure.
Those are the kind of things you grow from. And they're the things that you take with your character for the rest of your life. The techniques and all that, they're all going to fade. Everything's going to fade in jiu-jitsu. Every award you won is going to fade. But what you developed in your character is going to stay. And there was one match that I lost. I remember when I was a purple belt, it was like my second or third year of competing, and I was competing as a purple belt. Mm-hmm. I won the Abu Dhabi World Pro. I went to the Brazilian Nationals. I won the Brazilian Nationals. And then I went to the World Championships, and I was really burnt out by this time. And this is not an excuse, but this is a reality. I was eating shit food. I was going out. I was out till, I think, 6 o'clock in the morning. We had girls back at the apartment. We got rid of them about 6 o'clock, and then we had to go to the competition at 9 o'clock to weigh in. And I didn't really care at this point. I was like, I didn't want to do the worlds. I was so burnt out. I was not even interested. And then I went in. I won my first match, like 17-0, submitted the guy. Second match, exactly the same. And then I had like a 5-minute break, and the ref's like, "Hey, you need to go again." I was like, "Man, I literally exhausted. I was dripping with sweat." He's like, "No, we don't. We only have to give you 5 minutes or something." I remember thinking, "Okay, I'm not going out there. No way." And then I thought, "Well, fuck it, I'll just go out there." I went out there. I think I 7 points to 0 on this guy, and I was just exhausted, and I felt like I was going to throw up. And I just threw myself in a triangle and let him triangle me. It wasn't even a triangle on. I just sort of tapped. And that was the worst thing I'd ever gone through, where I'd actually broken mentally and given up in a match. And it's like the one thing I remember more than anything is because it wasn't, not because of the result or anything like that. I don't really care about that. It means nothing if I won that competition now. But because I broke mentally and I gave up, that's what I hate the most. I wish I had pushed through that and just lost, by trying to win. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Rather than giving up.
Lost via exhaustion, lost without sacrificing your pride.
Yes.
Your pride, essentially. And I hope this educates people, because that's part of the reason why we have this podcast, not to ramble and have people listen to me talk, but so regular ass people could say, wow, okay, Kit Dale, world champion, learned from breaking one time. So it's okay to break, but I have to learn from it. Or Kit Dale, world champion, Kit Dale, famous jiu-jitsu guy, whatever you want to call him, is just like me. He goes through the same things as me, or he believes in the same thought process as me. The thing that separates regular person from best in the world is just kind of the effort you put in. It's not necessarily like they know this secret that no one else knows.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
No, exactly. And this is something I tell people in my seminars all the time, is I was more scared of people in my fights than probably anyone I could imagine. I was always really scared. Even in matches where I'd come against someone where people would be like, "Oh, kid, you're going to smash this guy, blah, blah, blah." Even if I did, I would still be so nervous and scared, because I really respected every single person out there. I knew that anyone, especially in competition, anyone can make one mistake and lose the whole match. Yeah. And this is the thing, is I tell people, and it's like my next point was actually, I'll go further with that. But in competition jiu-jitsu, you can make one little mistake and get submitted. And this is why I don't really care too much for submission-only competitions, because how many times have you rolled and just playing around with stuff, you take a risk and you get caught, you get submitted.
All the time.
All the time. Now, this can happen in jiu-jitsu matches as well, all the time. But how often were you dominated the whole round and said, "Oh, I just made that one mistake," and got dominated? You know what I mean?
Yeah, so true.
The control aspect of it is completely different. Yeah. So this is why I don't like submission-only competitions as much. Well, I enjoy watching, don't get me wrong, but I don't rate them as high as what most people do. Mm-hmm. Because anyone can make a mistake and get submitted. But the control aspect of it, very, very seldom is someone controlled for 10 minutes and even if they didn't win it by submission, like, does it look like it was close? You know what I mean?
Sure.
And the submission only element of it completely destroys the control element because people don't care anymore. People are just losing position, jumping there. You don't know what's a guard pass, what's a mount, whether it was done properly. It's all just people taking risks and trying to get a submission.
Sure. I know that. Yeah. Sorry. Go.
Yeah. Go on.
No, I was gonna say that. I feel kind of the same way about that, where submission only events, and don't get me wrong, we just held a submission only event, and I love watching it. It looks great, but what I've realized is that it turns the jiu-jitsu match into this high risk, going for anything match instead of remembering all the principles of jiu-jitsu, which means keeping a good base, not getting swept, things like that, and not missing. I don't know. It's not even about not missing steps but like keeping the concepts intact.
Yeah.
And I feel that does get lost in the whole jumble of things. And I see where you're going with the whole submission only thing. And the problem with people now is it's black and white. It's either this is the good way or this is a bad way. When we have to realize it's just a domain of competition. You're either going to do submission only, or you're going to do EBI rules, or you're going to do IBJJF rules, or you're going to do Naga rules. Just pick a rule set and do it. Nothing's better than the other thing. You're going to get boring stallers in every single realm of competition. Just take it for what it is. Just compete in what you like, and don't worry about whether it's better than the other realm or not. You know what I'm saying?
No, I totally agree. Because the same thing, like I said, the same thing happens in points matches. And you get guys that sit there pulling guard to guard and like waiting for the 30-second mark at the end to come up and get their advantage and win.
Yeah.
So it's a byproduct of the rules. Do I have an answer for both of them? No, I don't. And I think if someone did, they would have. It would be out there already. Like something that I think the problem is. I think maybe is something I was talking about the other day. Is it needs to come down to having 3 really good refs that judge the actual match, more like the UFC does. It judges the control, judges the submission attempts and stuff like that. Because at the moment you're seeing, jiu-jitsu isn't, like I said before, jiu-jitsu is a niche sport. Then you've got even smaller niches, like now the competition, the submission only competitions, which is even a smaller niche of that. And then you get people like Gary Tonin and Gordon Ryan that specialize only in submission only, fighting in that.
Yeah.
And now everyone's so excited about leg locks, and which is good for anyone that's marketing leg locks at the moment, mind you. If you've got a leg lock DVD coming out, you're going to be the happiest man in the world because these submission only competitions have got so much excitement around them now. The guys that have been practicing them for so long, and not just practicing submission only, but practicing specifically leg locks in submission only, are dominating that field.
Yes.
Are they the best grapplers in the world? No, they're not. Mm-hmm. If they were, they'd be winning the IBJJFs and they'd be winning that. But the fact is they're not, because they're focusing specifically on that. And like, I love watching Gary Tonin in those kind of matches and stuff like that. But then you see him go in an IBJJF match, and usually he's not on the podium. Even the No-Gi Worlds, I don't think he won this year or was on the podium or something. But submission only worked really well for his particular style, because most of the time he's fighting other people that are from IBJJF that do the gi as well as no-gi, and it's just the way it is, And then the same thing happens for the gi guys; they're not doing submission only.
Sure, but it's just the realm. I guess the real question is, how many different modalities are you training in? Are you training for a week in IBJJF rule set in your gym, and then the next week you're training for EBI rule set in the gym, and then the next week you're training for Polaris rule set in the gym, and then, are you doing all that? Then you might have a chance of being able to beat everybody. But if you're not training in all those different modalities, and you're not training in the gi, or you're not training no gi, you're isolating yourself. I feel like when you only train in one, you're isolating yourself. I feel like you should get a feel of everything. Why the hell not?
Which is what we're seeing at the moment. Yeah. Is the people that are winning the niche parts are the ones that are isolating themselves from that.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't impress me one bit. And that's because I do everything. I do takedowns, I do judo, I do wrestling, I do gi, I do no gi, I do submission only, I do whatever it is, because I feel like as a martial artist, the most important thing is not winning these small niche competitions, but being well-rounded and always stepping outside your comfort zone and trying to learn, and as a person, trying to learn more.
Yeah.
Why would you limit yourself to one area of jiu-jitsu When in the end, like I said before, in the end, the results, all that kind of stuff, that's going to fade. All you're going to have is experiences you had. So I think the most important thing is to step outside your comfort zones, practice as much stuff, even outside of jiu-jitsu, as much stuff. Learn things. Don't become too focused on one little thing, because I'm telling you, it won't give you back what you put in.
Mm.
So use life as an example. Do as many things. Learn everything you want to do and practice everything you want to do, and have these experiences where you're outside your comfort zone. Make as many mistakes as you can, but learn from them. And that's something I say in my seminars all the time. Is I think the most important thing is to make as many mistakes as you can, as long as you're learning from them.
Very
as long
good.
as you're breaking down why they, and then even do the same thing when you have success, like you said before, when you come up with a new technique. Discover why that worked, because why it didn't work is just as important as why it did work.
Sure, that's very good advice, man. Now, before we go, we got one more segment. I don't know if you're interested. We usually do fan questions.
Yeah, of course.
And you don't have to do long, drawn-out answers, or you can if you'd like to. So, which I appreciate. These aren't long, drawn-out. That's a bad way of saying it. You're answering, topics that are very good. So I'll ask them, and then you can just dive in.
Awesome.
Or you could say, no comment. I would like not to comment on that.
Oh, not talk about that.
One person on Instagram said, it comes from 8Pack Black, okay, on Instagram. So when is Kit going to compete again? The $1 million question.
Well, the minimum of when I'll compete again is February next year in the Copa Podio in Brazil, because I'm leading the Australian team.
Nice.
Sorry, was that the minimum? That's the most definite. But I've also been asked to compete in I won't name it, but a submission-only competition that's taken place here in LA in September that I said I would be available for. So we're just having a look at a spot in that at the moment.
Okay.
At the moment, all spots were full. And because I couldn't commit 100% to them, because I said, look, it's subjective to how the knee's going, they put me on as an emergency. But I would say most likely you'll see me compete in 3 months' time.
Awesome, man.
That is the most likely of that.
Okay, next question. It comes from, on Instagram, Chine Cat. I don't even want to pronounce it. How many times do we see these names? What does it mean?
I hate fake names, man. 'Cause fake names just give people power to speak absolute shit most of the time.
So true. It's like, I'm the Black Samurai Warrior 906. No, what's your goddamn name? Just write your name.
Who are you? Have some balls, man.
Yeah.
Put your face where your mouth is.
So this guy asks, why is the leg lock game so dominant right now, and what are you doing to stay ahead of the curve? Oh, snap.
Okay, cool. I like that question. Well, to be honest, I worked leg locks since I started jiu-jitsu. I was actually, and it's a one area of jiu-jitsu I feel extremely confident in. Plus, I've got really small, strong legs, which really help in defending any type of leg locks. So I've never been tapped to a leg lock. Actually, no, I did. Sorry, one year I did because my ankle was really bad. I fought Hanato Cardoso, and I got a bronze in the brown belt division at the Pan Ams.
Mm-hmm.
But it was more like he grabbed my leg, and I tapped very quickly because I knew it was already shocking.
Yeah,
and I didn't want my ankle to get any worse than what it was. That was from a freak accident. But to be honest, I've always felt very comfortable doing it, but I never wanted to use them because, and this sounds really stupid, but I always felt like it was a cop-out to submit someone with a footlock in competition. I always felt like it was too easy because most people don't train leg locks. So the challenge of getting, you get someone that doesn't train or specialize in leg locks, it's extremely easy to leg lock them. Doesn't matter what belt they are.
Yeah.
You can see this from, blue belts, Sambo blue belts will come in or Sambo fighters will come in against top-level black belts and submit them. Now, what you're seeing at the moment is a combination of guys that specialize only in submission only and only or mainly in leg locks against guys that don't specialize in submission only or leg locks. So you're getting these guys that are looking good in competitions like the guys from Danaher's and stuff. Not saying they're not that great, but I'm saying you're getting them against guys that generally aren't top-level leg lock guys, and they're getting slaughtered. So it's like it's like setting up a submission-only, a grappling competition between me and a footballer. Yeah, the footballer is going to be strong and athletic and have a bit of understanding of grappling, but the chances of him winning are extremely low, and it'll make me look really good in the same time. So I think you got a combination of guys that have been ahead of the curve in a special niche area of jiu-jitsu that wasn't very popular for a long time, that has now suddenly got popular. So everyone's talking about them like there's some new kind of thing, but they're ahead of the curve. And the same thing that happened to berimbolos and leg drags happen. Guys are going to practice, like people are going to start practicing leg locks and work their game. And these guys that are dominating right now, in 2 or 3 years' time, probably won't even be seen doing that.
Now, I was gonna mention that's a good thing to mention. I feel like it is a good thing because it brings up a gaping hole in a lot of people's games.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing that it's becoming popular.
Yeah.
But it will pass because eventually everyone will rise and catch up. Now, this is my own question. What do you want to see from those people that are winning in those particular niches? What will satisfy you to say, no, that guy's really good?
Well, them stepping outside their comfort zone and winning other things. I'd like to see the guys from Danaher's go and win the IBJJF competitions in the gi as well. And it's not, I shouldn't say I'd like to see them. I don't really care what they do, to be honest with you. But if it was me, that's what I would feel satisfied in doing. Okay, you've gone out, you've won those competitions. Really cool. That's good. Test yourself more. Go in wrestling competitions, go in judo competitions, go in other stuff. That's why I like Travis Stevens, because you see him doing judo, then you see him doing jiu-jitsu, and he dominates at both. He hasn't like won a major event in at black belt level in jiu-jitsu yet, but it's not to say he's not one of the best in there. He's unbelievable, and just being at that level, you don't have to win it, because winning it sometimes it's a lot to do with luck in those areas. But being there and being dominant, is a different thing than just going in there and getting beaten. So if it was me, I would go into IBJJF comps. I would go and I would be working on things that I'm not great at. I wouldn't be doing, for me, I would get bored by the first time I heel hook someone. I wouldn't want to heel hook someone again. Then I want to ankle lock them. Then I want to do something else and just challenge myself, because in the end, that's the most important thing about it, is challenging yourself. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir. Now, this is my question. Who are your top 3 grapplers of all time, and who are your top 3 favorite grapplers to watch, at least right now?
I'm going to say Rodolfo Vieira, Leandro Lowe, and shit. Who else can I put in that? I'll talk about him first.
Is this all time, or this is your favorite right now?
Favorite right now,
okay.
Probably of all time. Rodolfo Vieira, I think, is unbelievable. I think his precision and his pressure passing is phenomenal. Yeah. And then you see on the other end of the scale, Leandro Lowe, who is such a scrambly, innovative style guy that just dominates as well. And he's not massively strong, but he's just, I think they're two of the best guys to watch that represent very different parts of jiu-jitsu. One's very precise with his technique and his pressure. The other one is very scrambly and makes a lot. The other one, is Antonio Carlos Jr., Cara de Zapato. I don't know if you remember him. He's in MMA a lot more now, but he's probably one of the most gifted jiu-jitsu athletes I've ever met. And he got to black very quickly and did very well at it, and then moved on and went to MMA. But he could have won a lot more than what he won, but he was more focused on the crowd and putting really cool, exciting fights on there. Sometimes he'd be up by 6 points and then end up losing the match because he just took too many risks. But he was an unbelievable artist of it, and I've rolled with him a few times, and he even felt smooth and really nice. It wasn't.
Do you know what we call that?
What?
We call that showing the art. Showing
the art, yeah. That's him. If you have a look at Antonio Carlos Jr. or Cara de Zapato, you'll see that. There's one other guy I'm going to add to it, and no one probably would have heard of him yet. His name is Talgar Ilyasov, and he's a Russian wrestler that's been living in Australia for a while. He was one of the top Russian wrestlers until he hurt his back years ago and was out for many years. He started doing jiu-jitsu for about a year. He went to Abu Dhabi Pro because he won the Australian trials and lost to Claudio Calasanz by 2 points in the black belt division after doing jiu-jitsu for 1 year.
Wow.
He also represented the Commonwealth Games, I think, in judo as well, and only just started doing judo. He's like one of those guys that you see that just the way he trains, which is very similar to me. Which I'm also complimenting myself by saying that. But he just feels around. He just moves around. He doesn't like doing technique training, but he's like one of the smoothest and flowiest guys that I've ever rolled with, and he learns so fucking quick. Like no matter what you do to him one time, he's gonna adapt in that moment, so you can't do it again. and his wrestling is phenomenal. He taught me a lot. Him and another, it's almost like his brother, Costa, that taught me a lot in Russian wrestling, freestyle wrestling back at home. But he is one of the best athletes I've ever seen. And if he didn't hurt his back, I think he could have been the best at everything he'd done.
Wow, that's a bold statement. Got to look him up for sure.
Yeah, have a look. It's hard to find stuff on him, but I've trained with almost every one of the who's these days, and he is the guy that stands out the most. There's guys that are really good, but then there's guys that could be so much better if they were like, this guy had that kind of resources without the injury.
Oof.
That excites me. Potential excites me.
Awesome. Last question, because we're running out of time. This comes from, on Instagram, Grapplers Review. I don't know if you ever heard of them.
Maybe. There's a lot of grappling pages that follow.
This one is literally called Grapplers Review, though. That's the difference.
Okay.
He said, or she, could be a she, how can I get a date with Kit? This is the last question.
It's near impossible, to be honest with you.
I hope it's a he.
Don't date because I don't like spending money.
So the only way you could get a date with Kit is if you're Kit.
If you've got a lot of money, you're very rich.
You have a better chance than most.
Kit Dale's off the market for the dating at the moment.
Gotcha. Awesome.
For about another day, maybe.
Until a very rich, wealthy person comes up.
Yes.
Awesome, man. Dude, thank you so much. This was awesome. I learned so much from this talk, and we really appreciate you coming on, seriously.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun talking about it.
Kit, I was the less vocal one, but I just sat back and absorbed all the knowledge gems you
Good
dropped.
stuff, man. I like that. That's what I do usually. I sit in the class. I don't say much unless I'm bored with the class. Then I talk a lot. But yeah, I don't say much. And then I go back and apply what I learned.
Awesome, man. So when are you going to be on the East Coast? Maybe we can catch you at a seminar.
I'd like to organise a trip for the East Coast. Actually, I haven't been on there at all yet. Most times I'm usually on the West Coast. I like a lot of sun, so it'd have to be a time when, I don't know if you guys ever get the sun over there.
It's super sunny right now. We're in New Jersey,
really?
New York. Yeah, the summer is pretty much, the summer has gotten longer, but it's pretty much on the East Coast. What is it, Marcos? Like anywhere from June to August.
Solid What's
June
the
to
flight
August.
like from LA over to Jersey?
What is the what flight? 6 hours.
Yeah.
Even less.
You can get a flight right to Newark or right to JFK Airport in New York. You'd probably be better off flying into the airport in Newark because there's a lot less traffic to get to where you need to get to.
Oh, really?
Just saying. That's just my. I'm not saying that because I'm from New Jersey. I'm just saying. No offense to the New Yorkies.
I would like to. I got to learn the New York accent as well. So it would
New York, what's going on?
New York, how you doing?
That was good.
Nice, cool. Man. All right, brother. We'll talk to you soon, and thanks so much. And we look forward to seeing you compete soon.
Thank you very much. Thank you, man. All right, take it easy, guys.
Take care. If you guys enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe, like, comment on our iTunes or Stitcher or any platform that you are on. It goes a really long way, guys. When you subscribe, it pushes us further along and it allows us to continue to bring you these podcast episodes with our guests, and it really helps out a lot to subscribe. It makes it a lot easier. It automatically downloads the episodes on iTunes. It's just easier to get us on your phone or your computer. So please subscribe. That's one of the biggest things you can help us out with.